Welcome to the RSI Trade of the Day. My name is Benjamin Poole, head trader here at Verified Investing with another show on the Relative Strength Index. Okay, so today I'm going to go over yesterday's haves and have-nots. So there were a lot of stocks yesterday that were getting a really big bid to the upside, and then there were other ones that were just getting beaten down. So there was actually one stock that I decided to short. I don't know if you guys know this, but I am an inverse trader. So what I do is I look for resistance levels and then I short them. Or if I look for support levels, I look for price action to get inside of that price, into that support, and then I take it for a long. Anytime we get some resistance levels and the relative strength index or the RSI doesn't give me the proper setup that I'm looking for, I exit the trade. And that's exactly what I did yesterday. I used the RSI to my advantage to exit the trade. And I'm going to show you SNDK. It is continuing to soar today. All right. So before we get started with all that and get into my RSI trade of the day, let's go ahead and go into APP. And that was my trade from yesterday. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button. RSI recap. Okay, so APP had an incredible move yesterday. I was anticipating it going up all the way to $700. I had that upsloping trend line. As price action got below it, price action got back to that underbelly of that upsloping trend line. I anticipated a nice pullback. However, that's not what happened. We did end up stopping out. Fortunately, I gave you guys a stop out on a 15-minute closing basis at any pierce of the $700 level. So we stopped out for a 1 to 2, maybe $3 loss per share on this trade. And then it continued higher. APP headed all the way up to 745. All right. So we don't know what happened. It looked like a fake print on the stock. However, APP, it did look like it was going to continue higher and hit that $800 level. However, it did get that significant pullback. Now let's go ahead and go to intraday on the RSI. So here's what happened, right? So you had this stop out on the 15-minute closing basis at a pierce of $700. That was actually a pretty good move on APP. Then it continued higher, higher, higher. Look at the RSI. It started to create some negative RSI divergence, and then you had this steep drop off. What I really liked to see was the drop below a low pivot as the RSI is heading below the 30. And so then you had a continuation of the price sell-off. It got from this low pivot about $710 and dropped an additional $7. And then the RSI continued to creep higher, took out this high pivot. And so we're seeing a little bit of a bounce. But an incredible move today, or excuse me, yesterday on APP. Now, for me, this favors a continued move to the upside. I could see 720, 725, probably as a max upside today on the RSI or on the price action. All right, so I'm going to go into SNDK a little bit later. So Robinhood. Hood is another stock that I was looking at. Here's the daily time frame of Hood. The thing I like about the HOOD chart is the relative strength index, or the RSI, as well as the price action, is fluctuating a lot. So we had the price action from basically the 20th of February, the 12th of February, you had a nice 50 to 60% drop. And then you had this huge surge to the upside, and then a continuation move. And then you have these 18% pullbacks with the RSI continuing lower. With a stronger stock, it did stop just below the 50 and got a bounce, and then it continued up. You have this upsloping trend line on HOOD that it signifies that we may have hit a top, at least for the time being, with the RSI heading above the 70. And then you look at the intraday RSI, and this thing just continued to be a monster. So again, if I want you guys to let me know, have you guys seen this before, where the RSI continues or fails to stay above the, if the RSI fails to break the 30 and fails to break some pivots, and then it continues higher. So that's what happened on HOOD. It failed to break some pivots, get below the 30, but then price action and the RSI continue to float higher. I anticipate this going up a little bit more today, although this is probably the max upside. If I were going to trade this, I would probably get in at $137.50. I know that's pretty close to where the price action is at right now. It's at $135.46 in the pre-market. But for me, that would be a no-brainer shorting opportunity based on the fact that now all these institutions have had the opportunity to push the price action up on Hood enough that it could get a little bit of a pop, but now I anticipate a fallback. So like I was mentioning, the RSI as well as the price action fluctuates a lot. And so I can anticipate a pullback probably down to about $120 would be my downside target on this. And that would be a big target, right? Now, this would be more of a swing trade opportunity rather than a day trade opportunity. Etsy on the upside, it was up 15% yesterday. I anticipated a big move to the upside as well. Again, continuation today. And the reason I expected a pop on ETSY is look at the RSI. So starting on the 29th, you did have a little bit of a pop below the 30, but then all of a sudden you got this huge price action at 1 o'clock, huge surge to the upside on the price action. And then look at the RSI. It got above the 70 and then it stayed pretty much above the 50 with relatively zero pullbacks in this thing. And so for me, this gave me, or it's telling me that we still have another leg to the upside. And so we go to the daily time frame on the ETSY chart, and I have this upside target of $77.13. You have a big gap fill there. The RSI on the daily time frame is starting to get back above the 70. And if you notice, the RSI plays the 70 and the 30 pretty well on this chart, meaning that you get these decent pullbacks on ETSY, 23% moves to the downside, 43% moves to the upside, another 30% to the downside. So for me, this is indicating that it is a continuation move, a little bit higher, but then you should have a pretty sharp pullback. Coinbase is another stock that was up yesterday. The institutions continue to push this up. Bitcoin did have a nice surge to the upside. So COIN does, for me, it favors a continuation move to the upside. I would say an upside target of $335.33. And the reason I get that number is the RSI stayed pretty much above the 30 the entire day. And then you switch to the daily time frame and you got this gap fill, or this previous gap fill on the charts. So that should be some significant resistance. And then we should get a nice pullback. CART on the downside, there was so much selling pressure in CART that I anticipated that there was going to be an intraday bounce. However, the RSI indicated that it still continued to move lower. It wasn't very volatile as far as the price action or the RSI. And so it just continued to push lower. So if you look at the RSI on the daily time frame, CART is actually looking like it's ready to bounce. You have this low pivot right here at around $36. That's where I would likely get into this trade. CART did get some bad news that Kroger is now going to be taking over. They partnered with DoorDash instead of Instacart. And so that was negative news, dropped this down 10%. But look at the intraday time frame. The RSI was pretty negative, never got above the 70. This is what I look for, though. I don't play the continuations, but this is what I notice when I'm trying to get into a trade. Even if something's getting into some support, if I don't have the volatility in the RSI and the price action, this is something I stay away from. So CART is one that I stayed away from today or yesterday, and it's continuing to fall. And again, around the $36 or $35 pairs would be, for me, a great opportunity to swing trade this. UPST was another one that was falling yesterday. Look at the drop. UPST, the nice thing about UPST is it actually had a little bit more volatility in the RSI as well as the price action. However, as soon as about 1:30, 2 o'clock came, price action just continued to dive, got a nice bounce. I anticipate it going down to $52.02. Here's the daily time frame on UPST. It is starting to get into the oversold condition as well. So another thing that I like to look for is look at this price capitulation. You get a 27% fall, 20% bounce. And now we're into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down days in a row into a lot of support. So for me, this would be a great swing trade opportunity. Wouldn't necessarily be a day trade, And the reason UPST is kind of a momentum, more of a momentum stock. So if there is continued negative sentiment, that can drive the price down. Okay, so now let's go ahead and go into my RSI trade of the day. So here I mentioned SNDK yesterday. I entered this trade. There started to be some volatility in the charts, and then all of a sudden the volatility started running out. You got a 2% pullback, 2% rise, but then you're inside of this parallel channel. Price action continued higher. I ended up stopping out. I ended up making about $120, $130 on this stock. But look at what happened to the RSI. It stayed really strong. Did create some negative RSI divergence, is one of the reasons that I decided to get into this. But as soon as the RSI stayed really strong with no low pivots being taken out, for me, I had to exit this trade for a potential bounce today. So if SNDK, based on the daily time frame, the daily RSI creating this negative RSI divergence, if this gets up to $120, this is my RSI trade of the day. With any of my RSI trades of the day, I'm looking to stop out at this trade at a Pierce of 120 or a 15-minute on a closing basis of 15 minutes. Okay, and I'm also looking for about a 3 to 5% pullback. Yesterday, I was looking for about a 5%. SNDK doesn't normally run that much, so I was really anticipating a pretty sharp drop-off like a lot of the other stocks that continue to rise higher and took these 3 to 5% pullback. So SNDK, a Pierce of 120, I'm entering a short trade, and I'm going to do that with the day trading room, and then I'm going to monitor the RSI as well as price action for volatility, so that way I can take 3 to 5%. If the RSI continues the way it did yesterday, I may stop out with this one for a loss, just like I did the last time. But that's okay. That's the nature of trading. That's the nature of getting into resistance levels and then trying to take advantage of some significant pullbacks when you're in those levels. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I really appreciate you guys. Please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, ring that bell so you can get notified every morning. The market is open, 8:45. And please stay tuned. Gareth Soloway is going live with my trading game plan at 9 o'clock. You guys don't want to miss that. And we'll see you guys next time in the charts. You guys have a great rest of your day. Take care.